Ready. Okay, here we go.
This okay, it's being
All
recorded. I
right.
will select okay.
We're back with Therapy is Dope with Alicia and Laura, and Laura couldn't join us today, but we're very lucky to have David Olges back, professor, psychologist, or no, not even psychologist. What is it? What is
No,
it?
no. So
Licensed
I'm a
professional?
professor. I'm an assistant dean or associate dean at Southern New Hampshire University, and then I have my mental health counseling license, and I've been
That's
doing
what it
that
is.
for 30 plus years. And the math makes me feel old, Alicia. I don't
I
know if I want to
know.
talk about
That's
math.
so rude. Um, well, we were just discussing that you guys have been working on some new stuff with the Ukraine. So let's start there just to
Yeah.
bridge the gap from where we left off last time, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, happy to. So, as you know, I've been working over in Ukraine for 25 years. A lot of friends, a lot of family there during the war. Been going over, oh, 3 times now. Yeah, and getting ready to go again here at the end of the month. We've worked with folks who, first, just to identify what are the issues of civilians in a war zone, and then how do we help them in a war zone? Because we can't change their context, we can't change the threat level. What can we do that's meaningful? So we've talked about that some. Um, a buddy of mine, his name's Dr. Eric Jett. He's the executive director of the mental health counseling program at Southern New Hampshire University, and just fantastic human. Beyond that, he's an exceptional play therapist.
Ah,
And so, yeah, so the question was that we were getting from folks in Ukraine is, as folks may know, the Russian military has kidnapped a lot of kids and put them in internment camps, and who knows what's happening? Nothing good. How's that? Nothing good. Um, but some of those kids are coming back home as the Ukrainian army gets them back. And so the question that the psychologists over in Ukraine were asking is, what do we do? Because
yeah,
their answer is, well, you're home, go to your parents' house. And that's it. Parents don't get anything, kids don't get anything. It's like, okay, well, I feel like there should be something.
yeah.
Uh, and
You don't get
so
debriefed or anything.
yeah, I mean, debriefed or what happened or how do we help you process everything? I mean, most of these kids have thought that their parents were dead. They've been,
Oh,
yeah, oh yeah, oh
oh,
it's horrific, or that their parents didn't want them and gave them up,
oh.
gave them to the Russian army to do whatever they want to them, and you can imagine what whatever they want means. And they were being weaponized to be sent back in to shoot guns at the Ukrainian military.
Mm.
That's Yay. I have a lot of thoughts about the Russian military. We'll just pause on that. But so the question is, how do we help these kids? How do we help these families? And there's not a lot written on how do you help in this situation. So we knew we were going to be building it from scratch. And Dr. Jett was really helpful in taking the lead and getting that started. He's still working on it today. Um, so yeah, so that's what we've been working on most recently. And add to that,
Dude.
then I've been helping out with mental health needs for folks in the military. As the war's gone on, the Ukrainian army has had to move to a draft status and just drafting people into the military. And so they're seeing their different mental health needs of folks who are drafted into the military, and they're anxious, they're afraid, they don't want to do this. Some folks become more suicidal, and the military leadership is asking, how do we help them transition to protect the country? And so I've worked on that with the military as well as answering that question. How do we best resource people to do something that they never thought they'd ever want to do in their lives?
You
Um,
guys are such freaking heroes because this is insanely difficult work. I mean, doing regular therapy can be difficult, and I've worked in substance abuse, which is highly connected to trauma. I've worked in sexual trauma in the sexual trauma
yep.
world, particularly with kids and minors,
Okay.
and that's incredibly difficult. But this is a whole different level of difficult and impossible, it seems like to me. So
Well,
the fact that you guys are like, yeah, we'll figure this out. We'll
oh
come up
no,
with
no,
something.
no. There are days where like I don't know what I'm doing. No one should let me in this room. Those days are here too. I mean, sometimes it's just that complex. And the thing we decided is, our background and our training is so helpful. We know so many people who are just brilliant experts in so many specific areas, like you, Alicia, with your expertise that we don't have. That wasn't, I don't have every expertise
Yeah, you
in my
can't.
brain. I
Yeah.
couldn't. But I do know the people who do have it in their brain and they're willing to help. And I think that's the thing that's remarkable. The support that we're getting to do something like this, it's do the people like us? Yes, they do. But it's just how the American people feel about helping Ukraine.
Yeah.
This is their opportunity to do something meaningful to say, you know what, we see what's happening over here in the States and we don't agree with it either. And we're going to do what we can do to help you. And I think that's, we talked about this before. It's just coordinating everybody doing their part,
Yeah.
whatever that is. And it's amazing the impact we can have together.
Ah,
It's just amazing.
I really agree with
Just,
that.
I love when people get together to do good things. It's
I
just,
just feel like this is going to be really groundbreaking though, and I feel like you're not giving yourself enough credit here. And maybe you do behind closed doors, but I mean, with everything going on in the world, I imagine that what you guys are doing right now is going to be very relevant to m many other cultures.
yeah, there's no doubt that that'll happen. That, yeah. In fact, speaking to that, since our last podcast, someone reached out to me. He's a director of an international high school program across the world. They have campuses in I think it's 19 different countries across the world.
Wow.
And they said, "Hey, we saw what you're doing." They had read the Counseling Today article as well, and they said, "We don't have kids who are in a war zone, but we're receiving kids from the Middle East and
Mm,
Beirut who have been in war zones, and now they're not in war zones, but their families are. We don't know what to do to help support them. Can you help us with that?" And I'm like, okay, that's going to take at least a whole Saturday to answer that question.
right.
And it's been neat. I've been able to meet with them. We've been able to come up with not a treatment protocol per se, because there are counselors who can do that. But what do the faculty do? What do the staff of the residential high school do to support these kids and to make it feel safe for them and to help them to process? What does it look like for their academic progression, so that they can succeed, but they can succeed on a different metric than the kids who haven't come out of a war zone. And then how do they handle contact of mom and dad or the guilt that they feel now that they're safe and mom and dad aren't? How do you process all of that? What system do you put in place? So I got to do that with them and it's been fantastic. It's just been fantastic.
Another area that I was thinking of when you were sharing was the detention centers that were holding immigrants and their families and their children. And there's been some where they separated the children from their
Yep.
parents. There's going
Yeah,
to
I
be a
hadn't even thought of that, Alicia. That it's really true because I mean, what we're talking about here is not just a traumatic event. We're talking about open-ended trauma, whether
Mhm.
we're in a war zone and we don't know when that trauma is going to end. Like if you and I go out to movies and we decide we're going to go see whatever, and we come out and it's late at night and somebody mugs us, right? It's a traumatic event, but by the time we get to the counselor, the trauma is over. The
Right.
event is over, right? But for
Yeah.
folks in a war zone, folks in an internment camp, folks in a detention facility, they've had a trauma that's happened. Something has come from outside their locus of control and slammed into their life and changed it in a way they didn't want it changed. And it's happening still every day.
Yeah.
And it's that open-ended nature of it that I think really starts to undercut the assumptions that we make about the world. Like I can be safe today, or I can get a meal today, or I can communicate with the people I love today. And when those are broken, that's when we see people saying, "Well, am I a sucker? Did I do something to set myself up for this?" And what they're looking for is control.
Yeah.
Um, One of the biggest things to help heal in any of those environments is their sense of control and autonomy. And so, how do we do that? How do we practice the process of giving them the confidence to let an assumption about the world do that, just become an assumption? Like, I don't have to worry about, am I going to eat today? I don't.
Right.
And that's a wonderful thing. But it's been a habit for so long, for so many days, for so many years. I don't ask the question anymore, will I eat today?
Right.
I don't. But if somebody came and did something in my life where I couldn't eat on a regular basis, that's going to be a traumatic event for me and make me have to rethink figure, can I trust that food is always going to be here? And that's what we're doing in each of those scenarios is how do we rebuild their sense of trust in the world and how do we rebuild it in such a way that they can begin to move forward with their life as those with those things as assumptions.
I think one of the coolest things about people
Uh-huh.
is how they naturally come up with ways to be resilient, just on like on accident.
Yeah, what do you
With
see?
with my work with people, they on accident will do these like decompression routines where like let's say they come home from school and they'll turn out all the lights and just sit in the darkness for a little bit and completely decompress. And that's just something that they naturally came up with. No therapist was like, "Hey, you should probably do this every day when you get home."
Right. They just started doing. I think you're right. I think it's funny. My wife says that I sigh a lot. And I said, well, that's stress related to work. And that's how I'm compensating, apparently, is sighing and sitting on the couch in the evening. So I don't know how mentally healthy that is, but this is where we are.
It's
So,
a breath. Think about it from a breath standpoint. That's a
yeah.
deep breath that you're taking. So it is a resilience skill that we teach.
Isn't it amazing, though? I mean, to your
It is.
point, the fact that our body will lead us in that direction, even when we don't know for sure what to do. I think that's fascinating.
Yes.
I think that's
Okay, so we were also talking about a new development in the world of therapists, and should we call ourselves mental health counselors? I don't know what we should call ourselves.
Yeah, let's say counselors for now.
Sure, okay. That we can, there's new specialties that are being opened up to us. You want to talk
That's
about that a
true.
little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, and I think what we're talking about there is being able to work in the world of performance psychology, particularly with athletes, is what you and I were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which I didn't
um,
know was something that you did, by the way. Just another accomplishment to add to the
you know, is it an accomplishment? Is it a way to get a paycheck? What have we gained? What have we lost in this
I mean, I
comparison?
think it's pretty
So,
cool. I
it is fun.
recently was hanging out with a sports psychologist, and he was telling me that he was tired because he was having to get up at 3 in the morning to meet with his ice skaters in France. And I was like, oh,
Stop
that is
yourself.
so
It is
cool.
amazingly cool. I will do that. If you would like to rest, have them call me.
Yes. You
I would
should take a
absolutely.
nap. Let's,
Yep. No, you know what's really neat is many fields in the past, sports psychology was reserved for psychologists, and and those folks are still out there. They're still wonderful. They know what they're doing. They're incredibly helpful. But the market for sports psychology was seeing that they could. I, my observation was it was more of a financial decision. It's like how can we get more people out there helping quickly?
yeah.
And so folks with master's degrees could cover that as just as well as folks with doctoral degrees. And
We're
so
like
what
the
we're
PAs or the NPs of the medical world.
yeah, I mean it's like okay, we know this stuff. We just get there quicker.
Yeah.
Academically anyway. And
And
it's
we're
not that we
cheaper.
don't need to reference folks who know other things that we don't. We certainly do.
Oh,
But we
yeah.
can get the ball going and do quite a bit. Um, And so a lot of the opportunities to work in professional athletics or collegiate athletics have been open now for folks who have a master's degree in counseling and want to start working in the field. Um, Historically, I've worked at two Division I colleges and helped out with the mental health needs of the athletes there. I've got family members and friends who are professional musicians and deal with
Mm.
performance psych things as well in professional orchestras around the country. And it's amazing because it's the same issues, just applied differently, which makes it a lot of fun. And then I've got a colleague and friend, Dr. Tamara Harris, who is brilliant. She works for the Houston Texans in the NFL to help them out with their mental health needs of the players. So that's pretty cool. She's pretty remarkable. So getting to see it at different levels, from working with D1 athletes in college to working with professional athletes who are on the field every week and on the practice field every day, it's fantastic. To even seeing it with professional musicians who are auditioning, and how do you handle that mental challenge as
It
well as keeping the
is.
job? Yeah.
Yeah, it is a mental challenge. And it's so much both any kind of professional that you're going to be in that sense, in that world, like whether it's music or sports, there's so much discipline involved. And anytime you have discipline, if we go back to this control thing, well, I worked with a couple professional baseball players at one point, and the superstition in baseball is so
Oh,
crazy
it's
because
real,
they
isn't
don't
it?
have control. The statistics are so tight for what they're trying to do that they're always looking for any way to have control.
That's so true. It's just it's very real is what that is. Um the idea of control, I mean that's the thing. I mean, if I were to jump over to the musical side of the world with folks who are auditioning to get into professional symphonies, I mean it's very competitive. I mean, you think about how many universities are graduating talented students with music performance degrees, and you think of the handful full-time orchestras that are available. And by the way, all those people, they all have jobs already. So you've got to wait for an opening and an opportunity. So when you hit, you really want to hit. And this idea of a locus of control, a lot of folks go in there and they're just like, well, I guess I'll just play it the best I can and see what happens. Like, okay, well, that should produce anxiety because you can control more than that. But like, what do you do the day before? What day gets you centered? How are you going to play the pieces? What is it that you want to say with each piece? Not just can you hit the notes, but how do you express music? That's what they want to
Mhm.
hear over there. And then process wise, if you know, ask yourself this question. Let's say there's a distraction. I'll give you an example. I was working with a guy who was auditioning for the Austin Symphony Orchestra in Austin, Texas. And he said he was all ready to go. He had kind of gotten his game plan together, you know, no alcohol for at least 2 days before an audition, because that's how long alcohol processes
Mm.
through your body. All those things. And he had done it. He had done all those things. And he got there and he's sitting in the waiting area. He knew he was going in the third round of the auditions. This is fine. And he knew what to do at that time. So his mind was occupied and he wasn't just getting anxious. And and a guy reaches into another contestant reaches into his trumpet bag and pulls out a big empty grocery bag, and he starts breathing into it, just going
Oh.
ah. And the guy that I was working with was like, what on earth is that? You know, that's a distraction and not something he'd ever seen in his entire life of playing his instrument. And one of the things he said, Dave, one of the things that really helped that you and I had talked about is variables are going to show up.
Yeah.
And the question is going to be this. You're going to ask yourself three questions. Number one, does that problem need to be dealt with? Well, the breathing bag thing, yeah, that needed to be dealt with. Does it need to be dealt with now? Yes, it needs to be dealt with now. Does it need to be dealt with by you? And the last one was the one that helped him to calm down. He said, yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, it needs to be dealt with now, but I don't have to do anything. And he just got up and walked outside. And he said it helps you to keep your game plan in place. Once you create your game plan, you run your game plan, and anything else is a distraction. Those distractions, those variables, are the things that are going to heighten your anxiety. Or the thing that heightens everybody's anxiety is when you show up without a game plan. And
Um,
anyway, that locus of control, right?
yeah, and I'm thinking right now about when Tiger Woods got busted cheating on his
Oh yeah.
wife, and like
Yeah.
his game just completely changed after that. That variable really messed with him.
Oh, I mean, it changed everything, right? Like, do I get to go home tonight becomes a variable. Do I get to live in my house tonight? Will I be poor tomorrow? These are big questions, right? That anybody would go through when a divorce shows up. And so, what can you count on? What can you control? Um, and what can you let go of? Those variables of distraction are definitely something to think about. It's kind of like, oh, go ahead.
Well, you had mentioned too that there was common things that come up for people, but I don't want to interrupt your thought flow.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. We can come back to it.
Okay.
The common things that come up for people, you mean athletes?
Yes.
Yes, yes. So when you're working with athletes, their concerns usually fall into one of three categories. And just so the audience knows my background, I was able to work with Division I athletes at a Big Ten school and Division I athletes at a Big East school. So working with athletes who need to perform every day. And it's interesting, just as an aside, at the college level, the mental health needs of students who are on teams that are revenue generating for the university are different than the mental health needs students who are on teams that are not revenue generating for the university. So
I could
a
see that.
D1 football team is different than a D1 swim team, and what you're going to see with what issues are on their mind. So it's just interesting.
That is,
But when it comes to their mental health needs, the first thing you're going to see is performance. They want to know how to be the best athlete possible. That's number one. Number two, you're going to see eating disorders because people are trying to make weight, or they're not great with their nutrition, or they are great with their nutrition, but they're super controlling about it and freaked out about it. So, eating disorders is another area that you're regularly going to address when you're dealing with D1 athletes. And then the third is going to be things like alcohol, drugs, gambling, all those things that can get them in trouble. So those are the three areas. If those seem like they're interesting to you, sports psych, sports counseling might be the place.
years ago, uh, Raheem Morris was coaching the Bucks here in Tampa, and I ran into him totally randomly at a
Wow.
at a restaurant, and he happened to sit right next to me. And so I was just talking, I had no idea who he was. And I was just talking to him about what I do. And at the time I was working at a intensive outpatient program for substance abuse. And he was like, "Oh, I could probably use your services." And again, I had no idea who he was. And one of my friends showed up and she looked at him and she was like, "Oh, I know exactly who you are." And I was like, "Well, who is he?" And she's like, "I'll tell you later."
Oh,
So I
oh.
didn't know who he was until we left. And I was like, "Oh, that could have been a job
I
opportunity."
could have landed one. I could have landed
I was
it.
so close.
That's the best. That's the best. So close, so close. How do we get back? Call him, call him. See how he's doing. Um,
But I can imagine that that would be a top concern. It's interesting. I work a lot in healthcare, and
uh,
it's a big concern in healthcare too. The higher rates of substance use in the healthcare field.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know what's interesting? I mean, let me put a pin in that and
Yeah.
talk about one other thing with the students. Um, the bubble that a student lives in when they're a Division I athlete. One of the things I learned from the students is when you're with your teammates, you're usually talking about the game or the next game or the practice or the whatever it is. When you go to your dorm, you've got regular students for your friends, but all they want to talk about is you being an athlete. And
Uh,
so, how do you find a space where you get to be a human being apart from
mm,
the athletic part of who you are?
hmm.
And counselors can speak to that. We can talk about how to build a social network. We can talk about how to spend time and develop the other parts of who a student is. And it's so important because just like any other sport, like I played sports, but not at that level. And I remember how abrupt it was when I was done. I mean, it was like
Hmm.
one day I was on the team and the next day I didn't make it and it
Yeah.
was done. My whole world was wrapped around sports and it was over. And it's going to be the same thing for a lot of students going through college or the same thing for professional athletes. One day, nobody gives you a contract. So
Yeah.
who are you without athletics?
Mm.
And counseling
Ooh.
can answer that. Counselors know how to do that. They know how to help kids and adults build those parts of their lives so that, yeah, it'll still be rough when you get cut, but you know where to begin. And
I
that's
love
huge.
identity work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it gives them hope. It gives them hope, right? And it's I think it's exciting. The other place where it shows up, and this is a bubble within athletes, is when they get injured.
Oh, that
Just
makes sense.
yeah, when you get injured, you might be on the bench, but you're not practicing. So you're not really with the team, you're not really with the kids on the campus. Um, and here's the thing, when it comes to being an athlete, the way you got to your performance level, once you get injured, you think, oh, I got to get back to those numbers. I got to get back to those time splits. I got to get back to the weight. I got to get back to all those. No, you have to build a new path to perform at that level. And so your worst enemy is everything you can remember about what you did before the injury. Um,
Ooh.
and so how do we help them? And counselors can do that. How do we set aside the path that's over and grieve it, but take lessons from it to build a new path forward to see who we're going to become? Counselors can do that.
Mm,
That's that I think it makes the job really fun. Because once the students start getting it, they're like, I see what we're doing. And they're competitive, they're driven, they're disciplined. So imagine having a counselor, sorry, having a client who is as driven as a thoroughbred horse. Once they get the idea you're trying to teach them, they'll do it and six other things before they see you again next week.
yeah, so
It's
true.
really it's a lot of fun. I mean, they're very inspiring group to work with 99% of the time.
An interesting thing that Bessel van der Kolk brought up too.
Yeah.
I went to his training a couple years ago, and he brought up how important mindfulness is in sports,
What do
and
you
how
say?
he was saying that a lot of sports are naturally mindful. I'm balling up my fist because he was talking about boxing in
Oh yeah.
particular. And he was saying like you have to be so focused on your body and your movement and what's happening that it's you really get into a flow of things, and that mindfulness can be really healing. And he's seen people come out of major traumas through that kind of mindfulness in sports.
I hadn't heard that, but I love that. I mean,
Isn't
that
that
makes all the
cool?
sense in the world. That is
Yeah.
really cool. Well, I mean, and that's the oh gosh, there's so many ways we could go with this conversation. I'm just fascinated with sports counseling. Um, when you think about the performance side of sports, okay, so what do they do? The first question you have to ask is, are they on an individual sport or on a team sport? Because it's a
Mhm.
completely different set of mental health skills that we can build in them.
That's
Um,
true.
and and the quote that you were just sharing really highlights what happens with individual athletes. They
Yeah.
need to have a system by which they can analyze themselves and know what to do. Think of a golfer. When a
Yeah. Oh
golfer is
gosh.
competing and they're out on the links, their coaches can't coach. They're not
Hmm.
allowed.
They got
So
their
they,
caddy, and their caddy
yeah,
can like pat him on the back.
yeah, nice job. Here's another, and they're more helpful than that. But you get the idea. So you've got to equip somebody to go into a space where they're completely on their own for hours. And how do we build that mental resilience so that they rely on themselves rather than the circumstances of what's happening? Again, locus of control becomes a big point of conversation. Another one would be the mindfulness techniques. How do you calm your body? Those grounding techniques, things like sit down in your chair and squeeze the arms for 10 minutes, 10 seconds. Sorry, that's a long time. 10 seconds, and then release it and breathe out. Do it several times. Watch your heart rate go down. How do they self-manage becomes a big part of it. And then how do they get used to their rhythm? What's their game plan for this course? And the goal isn't to have a perfect score. The goal isn't to set a new record. The goal is, did you perform your plan? And that's one of
Mhm.
the things that comes out of sports that's so cool. I remember years ago, a really good coach told me, he said, uh, uh, there are three ways to lose a game. Two of them are good, one of them's bad. And I'm like, okay, you got to explain that. And he said, okay, three ways you can lose a game. One, you guys have a plan and you absolutely fall apart and do not execute your plan and you lose. It's like, that's a good loss because we can do something about that. We can go and practice it. We can fix it. We can get in there and make it better. The second way to lose is you run your game, you do a great job running your game, and the other team just beats the pants off you. They're better. That's a good loss because we can learn from how they beat us and we can be stronger the next time. He said, then there's the third way to lose. And he said, and I hate it every time. He said, the third way to lose is this. You execute your game, the other team executes their game, and the refs make a bunch of lousy calls or the ball bounces the wrong way, or the weather kicks up and nobody can account for that. It's
Oh,
all
the
the
weather.
variables that influence a game that you don't have any control over. He said that's a bad way to lose because we can't learn from it. We can't get better. We didn't do anything wrong. And I thought that's really helpful. That's
Yeah.
really helpful. And to give that to an athlete to appraise their performance is, did I execute my plan or not? And what can I learn from it? And then
Now,
they don't worry about failure anymore because they've got a plan for it.
I don't even like the word failure. Not that I think we should get rid of it or anything, but
Sure, sure.
I think of it more as what can I learn from this? If something didn't work out, it's just pointing me in a direction. What can I gain from this experience? That's how I try to think about it. But I have an important question. Uh,
Okay.
what do you think about the impact of coaches? Because there was one girl I worked with who did track, and her coaches were just brutal, and they did not focus like what you're talking about right now is like we're gonna look at the positives, we're gonna look at the
Right, right.
lessons, we're gonna look at whatever ways we can improve. We're not focused on our performance necessarily or how many goals we scored or whatever. So, and that's very therapeutic, and I align with that completely. But coaches have a different mindset about these
Oh,
things a lot of
sure.
time. And there's a lot of different coaching styles. And in this particular example, all they did was like tear them down and tell them how terribly they were doing.
Yep.
And I thought, God, I need to be the therapist for the coaches, not for you. Because this
It's
is
so true.
terrible what they're doing.
I get it. I get what you're talking about. The idea, some folks have, let's tear them down and we'll build them up. That is a method of coaching. It is. And so counselors, sometimes we have to help equip a kid or a student athlete for a coaching process that they weren't expecting. And so, how do we do that? How do we equip them for that? But you're right, the different methods that coaches use are vast. I mean, they're as unique as the individual coach, has been my experience. And
Yeah.
I remember one coach, and you and I think, talked about this one before. My kids all played soccer growing up. And I had heard that there was a coach who was really good that I think my son was going to play on his team. Anyway, it was very little and it was still co-ed, little kid soccer. And I was like, okay, let's see what makes this guy so good. And he had him doing all the same drills at the beginning. And here's there was one drill where he paired two kids up and there was one ball. And the idea was get the ball past your opponent and then turn around and do it again. And that's what they were practicing. And the coach was watching them, and one little girl sped up, slowed down, and sped up again and got past her defender. She was the first one to do it. He blew his whistle right away. Now, I don't know about you, but anytime I played sports or had, little league up to whatever, when the coach blows a whistle, it means somebody did something wrong.
Hmm.
And it's never a good feeling.
Yeah.
This coach blew the whistle and said, "Hey, everybody, stop for a second. Did you all see what Sarah just did? She sped up and slowed down and sped up again to get past her defender. Sarah, great job. Everybody practice what Sarah just did right."
That's awesome.
What a fantastic way to coach. I want him to follow me around in my job day to day. Blow the
Right?
whistle when Dave does something right and tell
Catch
everybody
me.
about
Yes.
it.
But that's the thing I think that blows my mind these days is that we have so much information on what humans need and what humans respond to. That right there is something that humans respond to. And we're talking from children all the way to adults. What works for children works for adults.
Yeah.
Praise, 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 praise. We love it. Tell me I'm
Yeah.
doing a good job. Give me an award. Give me an incentive. It's all the same shit, right? I mean,
That's
from
exactly
my
right.
perspective. So why don't we implement this stuff more often?
I don't know, man. I wish I knew. I would like, you know what? Let's do this. We will give this podcast to all of our friends and
Okay.
say, hey, you need to start catching Dave and Alicia doing the right thing and make a big scene about it. That's the takeaway of the podcast today. Um,
That's hilarious. It's really all about us.
you know what? If I've learned anything about counseling is it's all about me. That's what I've learned. That's what I've learned.
So true. And that's why I love it.
That's right. That's right. You know what's interesting? We're talking about coaches and their different styles. I was amazed working with Division I athletes. I gave them the ones who are on teams, we talked about the ones who are individuals in
Yes.
individual sports. In team sports, success looks a little different, but it's all about coming up with their process and how they're going to run it. And one of the skills that I gave, one of the assignments I gave them to do is we need to figure out what your role is on the team so you can be successful at it. But the only way you're going to know that is to know what the team goals are this year. So I want you to go to the coach and say, what are our goals as a team? Are we trying to win a national championship? Are we trying to win a regional championship? Are we just trying to get to 500 for the first time? Are we trying to put up the first win in 3 seasons at this school? What is the goal? And then ask the coach, how are we going to get there? Are we going to have a super strong offense? We're going to have a super strong defense? How are we going to do this to get there as a team? And then what is your role based on your position on this team? If you're a defender, what do you need to be doing? If you're an offense player, what do you need to be doing? And then sports IQ becomes not only knowing that about you, but knowing that about your teammates that are close to you. So you know how to help them win. Because if you're supporting them and you're doing your role, you're a star player. And that's what they all want to get to.
Mhm.
And so the other piece that we gave them with that was when you're on the field for a game, it's performance time. So don't try any crazy new stuff you've never done before in a practice. Just go out and execute like you know how to execute. This is celebration time for all the work you've put in team practices.
Well, that's kind
And
of a cool way to think about it.
yeah,
Celebration time.
yeah, it's not a punishment. It's not a you have to do this or you're going to lose your spot. It's all about look at all the years of work you've put in to get to this day. Go show off. People paid to see you show off. That's a good day no matter what happens. So changing the mindset to a celebration from a demand performance, and then helping them realize, okay, so if your performance time is the game, the team practice is where you're practicing all the skills, trying the new ideas to see what's going to help you perform well on the field on game day. And so this is where you practice all kinds of things. And then your individual training is any place you're weak that you need to develop so that you can practice equally with your team or lead your team so that you can then all perform together at the same level on the same day. And so you give them a whole model. Here's the thing. Remember when I said we were talking about coaches have different styles?
Mm-hmm.
I won't name the team at Purdue University, but I can tell you there was one team that they were terrified to go talk to the head coach. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't even want him to know their name. And so like, can we go talk to an assistant coach? I'm like, yeah, you big chickens, but go ahead. And they did. They went. But but that's the difference when you're getting into sports to generate money for a university. There's a different level of expectation on the coach, which trickles all the way down to every player.
Yeah, the
And I think that,
pressure.
oh, the pressure and the demand and the requirement, because it's a lot of money involved. It's
Yeah.
a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought all that was fascinating figuring that
That
out.
is really interesting. You know what I was thinking about?
What's
We
that?
were talking about Big Bang Theory before we
Yes,
started
we
recording
were.
today. And I started watching Young Sheldon with my kids.
Yeah.
And Sheldon's dad was a football coach. And so anytime he does anything meaningful in the show, he basically is relating it back to his coaching job. And like, what would I tell an athlete right now?
That's awesome. He's trying to bridge to his kid. It's like, how do
Yes.
we get there from here?
And it works a lot of times. And in the show, young Sheldon says, I don't think my dad got enough credit for the advice he was able to give us from his career.
That's the best. You know what's so fun about this stuff? I mean, one, working with the Division I athletes is very cool. The student athletes are just they're just the best people to work with 99% of the time. They are remarkable, disciplined,
Yes.
excited, young. They're just fun clients. Um, I was able to turn some of this around when I was coaching my kids and their soccer teams, and helping the kids to open up and get some confidence. And I think that's the big thing. And I think it's true with a lot of clients that I have that are just regular counseling clients. You're teaching them a set of skills to make their life better, but the other thing you're doing is you're building their confidence that they can do it.
Yeah.
And that is huge, especially when folks come in. typically they're carrying something that's heavy enough that they're not sure that they can get through this. And
Yeah.
so if we're not addressing confidence as well as clinical skill set, I think we're missing an opportunity. Can we still do something good? You bet. But there's something about building someone's confidence, helping them to catch themselves doing something right, that it becomes catalytic. It
Yeah.
becomes catalytic.
Uh, one of my therapy friends
Uh-huh.
told me she has a theory that all mental illness shares one common ground, and that is a low self-esteem, low confidence. And so from my perspective, literally all of us could benefit from boosting our confidence and boosting our self-esteem and
Oh
our
yeah.
relationship with ourselves. If we can start there, it can go into many different aspects of our lives. And
Well,
there's so much
yeah.
overlap in all this stuff that we're talking about.
Absolutely. I mean, if my confidence grows and I realize I can handle my life situation in a new way because I went to counseling, maybe I begin applying some of that confidence skills in another area of my life. Maybe work, maybe a relationship, or maybe, all of a
Yeah.
sudden, once you realize, oh, I can do more than I thought, and that self-talk really was crippling me. Um, what a powerful skill. And another idea, and it does come from sports, but the idea of thinking of whatever our negative experience is or negative memory or self-talk is, think of it like a muscle that we just practice exercising every day. There's no good or bad about it. We're not going to give it a moral judgment that you went through that thought cycle again. We're just going to say, "Oh, you exercised the muscle again." And changing it to what muscle do you want to exercise instead? And the visual image that I've got, I've never been good when somebody says stop doing that. I mean, guess what I'm thinking about?
Doing it.
I- right. But if I think if if instead I change whenever I think of X, I'm going to think of Y instead. Well, that's a habit I can practice. There's no moral
Yeah,
judgment, there's no guilt, there's nothing associated with that. So the mental image I have, which I don't even remember where it came from anymore. So I think the rule is if you can't remember the reference, it's your thought.
sure.
So that's what we'll go with today. Um, if I think of my negative self-talk or whatever the issue is, the guilt that I put on myself, the depression, the sadness, not that those don't also have biological sources, they certainly do, but the part that I add to it, if I think of that as a blue elephant, it's like, okay, that thing's a blue elephant. It's like if I tell myself stop thinking of a blue elephant, what am I going to think about?
Blue
Blue
elephant.
elephant. So instead, if I say, every time I think of a blue elephant, I'm going to stop and start thinking of a pink giraffe. Well, I can do that. I
Yeah.
can pivot from one thing to another specific thing. I can do that a whole lot better than just stop, 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 stop. And it's the
Mhm.
same thing with a lot of the negative self-talk we do. It's just change it. And it's what muscle do I want to exercise? Do I want to practice thinking about the blue elephant or do I want to practice thinking about the pink giraffe? Because whatever I practice, whatever I exercise is going to get stronger and it's going to get
So
easier to think that way.
I'll add for Laura today since she
Oh,
isn't
okay,
here.
okay.
Laura works in nutrition a lot, and she says that she always asks herself, how do I want to feel before I eat something? So it isn't about what I'm eating or if it's bad or good. The question is, how do I want to feel? And it would be the same thing for what you're talking about. Do I
Yeah,
want to think about the blue elephant and feel like shit, or do I want to think about the pink giraffe and feel better?
exactly. I like that. I'm going to steal that for the eating thing. I'm definitely going to tell Laura thank you. That's
Yes.
very good. That's very helpful to me. I'm going to apply that. Yeah, I'm thinking of a couple places I should probably apply that, particularly on the weekends. So
Well, don't start talking about my brownies, okay?
sometimes we eat our feelings because they're delicious. And that's what we're going to do. That's just what we're going to do.
But anyway,
Yep.
I we have to roll for today, but I am so
Oh,
grateful for your time and for this awesome information. And
Alicia, it's a privilege. It is so much fun talking to you, talking to Laura, and just being a part of the whole thing. So thanks for inviting me.
yay. Well, you got some nuggets, I got some nuggets, so it's good stuff.
It certainly is. Well, thank you again, and I'll look forward to seeing you out there on the internet.
All right, we'll see you later.
See you soon.
Bye.